This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Danilo's free. He goes to Gibbs wide. Edge of the box for Ole. Yes! Great goal! What a hit from Ole! Gibbs wide. They've only gone and done it again. Forest back in the lead. Rewarded Gibbs White. Oh, and he scores! And the City ground goes ballistic.
Hello, welcome to this edition of Red Side of the Trent as Forest prepare to face Fulham this weekend at the City Ground. Forest have coincidentally not won a game since Fulham at home when they beat them 3-1 on was it a Thursday or a Friday night or a Wednesday night, Mason? I don't remember.
It was a midweeker because it was dark. That's all I can remember.
yeah. Joining me is returning guest Mason Coy, as you've just heard. Mason, how are you, first of all?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, good. Thank you. Happy to be back on.
How have you enjoyed our start to the season?
Enjoyed it a lot, mate. Yes, I think there hasn't been much to not enjoy, has there? Really, it's took me and obviously quite a few other Forest fans by surprise. But yeah, so it's a welcome surprise, and it's welcome. I don't even know the word. Just how it's just a surprise, isn't it? Really, obviously the Anfield result. Yeah, it's took everyone by surprise.
Yeah, let's recap Brighton. Obviously at the weekend, 2-2 draw where we went 1-0 up. Went 2-1 down just before half time and then got an equaliser and then before some controversy. Just let's go back through it. What did you make of the game overall?
I thought it was a strange game, to be honest. Up until about what minute was their first goal? About 40th, wasn't it? Around that 43rd, maybe.
I think so. Yeah.
Around that, I was so comfortable. It was giving off the Liverpool vibe. Like even when we were 0-0 against Liverpool, I was fairly comfortable. I think one thing that Nuno's brought is we're very good defensively, aren't we? I think our XGs against is very, very good. I was fairly comfortable, and then obviously the Old Forest crept back in a little bit. It was concerning the way the two goals came about. Individual errors, you could probably put it down to. But yeah, obviously in the end we recovered very well. But on the whole, I think if you'd have gave me that before kickoff, I'd have snapped my hand off for it. So yeah, pleased by the end of the game.
I mean, I think loads of people would have said 3 points from Brighton and Liverpool. You'd have snapped your hand off. So 4 points is just a huge bonus. But the big debate, obviously, online has been the Matt Sells free kick goal that he conceded to Danny Welbeck. How do you feel about that situation? Do you still think Sells has still got a lot to do to give up that shirt to Carlos Miguel or what?
For me, I still think you stick with Sells because, yeah, I'd say it was his fault, undeniably his fault for the goal, but he's not as bad as Turner. Whereas Turner, everyone was calling for his head instantly because, rightly so, he was poor. But I think Sells is a lot better keeper than we actually give him credit for. I really like him. We did a bit of a season preview, I think, when I was last on, and I said was it a hot take? I said I think he'll get 10 clean sheets. What's he on now? He's on 2.
Yeah,
two after 5. So I'm heading in the right direction. I've always quite liked him. I think he did get it massively wrong for the goal. He had his little wobble at Liverpool where it looked like it touched every part of his upper body and nearly went in the goal. Yeah, I think his positioning was just wrong. It was just wrong, and for me, I'm not a keeper, but the number one rule if you're a goalie and you're facing a free kick is you need to be able to see the ball. And I don't think he could see the ball because he had quite a few bodies next to the wall as well. He just needed to probably take another step to his left, and then it's an easy catch for him. So yeah, I think he did get that wrong, to be fair. But with regards to Miguel, I'd stick with Sells for now.
Yeah, just before we talk about the controversy, because otherwise, also another talking point, it's great to see our squad depth be used to its full capacity. I mean, Nuno showed no kind of worries about changing it all at half time. I think he made 3 subs, and then obviously the 2 subs in Jota Silva and Ramon Sosa combining for the equaliser, and then Ramon Sosa could have won it, but I think he would have been offside, strangely enough. Yeah. But how happy are you to see that the squad depth is not only being used but actually coming to fruition as well?
Yeah, I think it's just that they're being used, yeah, but I think that's because you can trust them. Whereas last year we had a bench full of players that I think Nuno didn't really trust, and rightly so, by the way. Yeah, the three changes at half time, I think I put it in our little Forest group chat that we've got, and I said the crazy thing is, and we haven't had this since we've been in the Premier, is we've made three subs, and you could have argued that all three of them could easily start. That we're not bringing on players like we were last year, Origis and Rainers that were weakening us. We're bringing on players that are coming in and doing a similar job, if not better at times. So, yeah, I think that's a massive positive. It's shows how well we've recruited as well, to be honest. Like the likes of Jota Silva, Sosa, even players like Anderson, who I know were scoffed at previously on your pod and a couple of other pods as well, because he was on like stats wise, he wasn't necessarily a top player, was he? But on obviously the fee that came with it, which was slightly false. But yeah, just players like that who've just seamlessly stepped in, and we just look like a proper Prem side now, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I was so happy that they combined and got that equaliser, because obviously the week before Elanga and Hudson-Odoi combined for the goal. So it gives Nuno massive headaches, and obviously we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show with our lineups. But the obviously the controversial sending off in the ground, obviously I was there. I thought it was a perfectly timed tackle. You and the rest of our friendship group, like you spoke about just briefly there, got more than one replay, I would have thought. What did you think of it at the time, and then what did you think of it when you saw another replay or so?
My head's still hot, mate. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, you're pressing on buttons here. I'm going to have to be careful what I say. The game's gone, is all I'm going to say. If you can't tackle like that, Reece, I listened to your pod after the game, and Reece made a good point of if you're on a yellow, you shouldn't tackle like that. It was aggressive, which I totally understand, because as a pro, Gibbs White should know that. But also, how are you meant to slide tackle softly or less aggressive? It's part of our game. Do you know what I mean? You can't take away a slide tackle from a game. You could argue he's come from a bit of a dodgy angle, but did he touch the ball? Yes, with both feet, actually, I think. I just, yeah, for me, it's not a yellow. It's not a foul. It's a throw into Brighton, and we move. I think the placement of the tackle was unfortunate. I think if it's on the other side of the pitch, it doesn't get sent. It doesn't get a yellow because Anthony Taylor doesn't rear his ugly head. I think, yeah, for me, it's not even just because it's Gibbs White either. I think if that's a tackle from them, I'm still applauding it, because I'm going, yeah, what a tackle that is. Like you don't want to see tackles like that out of the game. You don't. Otherwise, we might as well never play Yates again. We might as well never play Milenkovic again. Even players like Nico Williams loves a slide. They might as well never play again, because they'll just be walking yellow cards. And Gibbs White is passionate. He's a passionate footballer. Like say, you can't tackle someone softly.
Yeah,
he's putting every ounce of what he's got left at that minute in the game to put a tackle in for his team, and he's been punished for it, for winning the ball. That's my opinion on it. It's a shambles.
It's such a good read as well from him, because he just knows that the ball's getting bowled out to João Pedro, and he's pretty much immediately stopping and attacking, like Brighton getting on the front foot. So just such a shame. We're going to obviously miss him out. There's going to be a bit of a debate probably amongst the fan base and you and I about what we do team selection wise, which will be quite an interesting one, I'm sure. But no doubt I trust what we've got, especially in our squad depth, that we can go put a team out that will still beat Fulham at the weekend. So I'm still pretty excited. I'm pretty excited to actually see some different faces, weirdly enough. I know watching Gibbs White it's worth the ticket price sometimes on its own, but yeah, it'll be good to see someone else get an opportunity and see if they can kind of throw their hat in the ring for being chosen in future games. But Fulham, obviously Saturday, pose a bit of a threat, have been a little bit, not a bogey side because we have beaten them, but they can dish out a bit of a thumping here and there against us. It is said, but the last game we played obviously against them was a midweeker. As you said, it was dark, so you presume it was in the midweek. 3-1 victory where we looked actually like a Premier League side that night, if I remember rightly. What do you make of Fulham this season so far?
Well, this season they've started off relatively well, haven't they? To be fair, I think they've got a similar record to us. but they're not unbeaten, obviously, but they've started off fairly well. They had a great result against Newcastle, didn't they? For me, they're just such a strange team. You never know what you're going to get from them. We could turn up and do what we did to them last season, or they could turn up and do what they did to us under Cooper. And like you just never know. They've got really good quality players. They've got a quality manager. They're such a strange team for me. They're around like the Bournemouths for me. Like you never know what you're going to get. You could turn up one week and chance you, and next week you give it them back. So yeah, I'm hoping it's the bad version of Fulham that turns up, the one that was last year, which I quite enjoyed when Harry Wilson got dragged off. But yeah, I'm hoping we can turn up for starters, and then they have a bit of an off day, not like they did against Newcastle.
Like obviously, I spoke to a Fulham fan earlier in the week, and I will put that in the show in a bit. But just off the bat, where do you think we can kind of hurt them? Obviously, Marco Silva likes to play on the front foot quite a lot, no matter what. He kind of doesn't kind of deter from that, and has obviously shown that he's a good manager at this level. And I think he's one of those that are in that cusp of leaving and going to a higher level at some point, but maybe just not quite yet. But yeah, they've got some good talent, but where do you think we'll hurt them?
I mean, when you think of Fulham, you don't necessarily think of them being defensively solid. I know they've signed Anderson, who's a good quality centre half. They've got Bassi, who's a big physical centre back. I really like Robinson as well, but I just feel like we can hurt them on turnovers because they're quite a possessive based team, aren't they? Possession based team. For me, after going to that game, the Fulham game last year, I thought Robinson dealt with Elanga very well. It was on the other side. It was Hudson-Odoi against Tete. I think that's where we're probably going to get most of our joy. If it's Aina, or Moreno, behind him, either or, I don't mind. I think that left side mainly will be probably our best bet, to be honest.
Yeah, Moreno against Adama Traore, I'd imagine so as well, which is going to be difficult. Hopefully, Moreno's got some gloves he can grip onto him with his baby oil, whatever he does that. I personally think central of the park as well, because of Paulinho and that big, huge gap that has left Fulham's team. I just think if Sasha Lukic has kind of took that role on as being their kind of destroyer, it does not worry me as much as it would have Paulinho. And Paulinho was pretty poor in the last game when we played Fulham. I just think if whoever's in the number 10 role or in the central attacking midfield role, I know people don't like the whole 10 term being used, so I'll use that one instead. But if you've got Anderson or Jota just buzzing around and being horrible, then that could cause Fulham a lot of problems. Equally on the other side, Smith Rowe could definitely cause us some problems. But yeah, we've looked defensively strong, so I'm pretty confident. But before we go into our formations and tactics, I spoke to Joe Gunning, a Fulham fan, earlier. I am delighted to welcome Fulham fan Joe Gunning to the show. Joe, how are you? Thank you very much for joining us as well.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the weekend, the big game.
Yeah, obviously Forest and Fulham have played each other plenty of times over the last few years, whether that's been in the Championship or in the Premier League. You've had our number a fair few times, it has to say. Obviously thought Steve Cooper might have got the boot at Fulham away last season, and he kind of held on for a little bit longer. And then the reverse fixture obviously saw Nuno get the better of Marco Silva in a 3-1 win.
Don't talk about that
one. Let's talk about the start to your season. Obviously, the weekend, I watched your extended highlights, so I wanted to have a look at Fulham a little bit more closely. And I have to say, I was really, really impressed with your 3-1 win over Newcastle. What was your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I was really impressed as well. We don't ever seem to get a result against Newcastle, so I wasn't really that optimistic heading into it. But oh my, did we bring the game to them. And that's kind of the way that Marco Silva set us up for the past couple of seasons, where no matter who the opposition is, we're going to really go at them and really give it our all. And I think that was really evident in the game against Newcastle. You can see that the system that Marco's been trying to get to work so far this season is finally starting to click. The midfield is starting to finally play how he wants them to. And it was kind of, as a Fulham fan, it gave me a clear picture of what the idea is and what Marco Silva expects from the team. I think that performance is what he expects for the rest of the season.
It was an interesting game because obviously by highlights, Joe Linton has that goal disallowed, and then Newcastle seemed to completely capitulate, and Fulham kind of took over. And I thought Adama Traore looked as good as he did that for that one season he had at Wolves. I thought that I've always liked Alex Iwobi. I think he's a cracking player, but like his interchanging play with Smith Rowe and the goal from Raul Jimenez is top class. I mean, I don't know how old you are, Joe. You look pretty young to me, but I don't know if you remember Drogba's goal against Liverpool where he spins Carragher, but it kind of reminded me of that where he's just took the ball and just spun and put it in the bottom corner. And I thought after that, Newcastle just looked like they weren't really that bothered until the start of the second half. And then obviously they gave the goal away right at the end when they were kind of chasing Bruno Guimaraes, giving it straight to Reece Nelson. How do you rate your start to the season? Because obviously you lost the first game to Man United and then you've kind of picked up from there a couple of draws against Ipswich and Fulham before winning at the weekend. And obviously you beat Leicester, didn't you, as well?
Yeah. It's been a season of, for me, if buts and maybes. Like if we hadn't conceded in the 95th minute to West Ham, and if we hadn't conceded in the 90th minute to United, and if we'd managed to beat Ipswich, then we'd be top of the league. But I mean, every team has their if buts and maybes. But it's been a assured start to the season. The two late goals that we have conceded to West Ham and Man United have put a little bit of a dampener on things. When we were playing Newcastle, I was just waiting for that equaliser to go in and it'd be the same old story. But I mean, we managed to hold out, even scored one of our own at the end, which was a nice surprise. But overall, I mean, 9th, you take it. You know, if I got given at the beginning of the season 6 games in or 5 games in, however many we're in, if I was offered 9th, I'd take it in a heartbeat. So overall, I'm happy with how we've done.
Yeah, it's an interesting summer window. Obviously, the club sorted it up. Elina finally go to Bayern Munich, I think it is, wasn't it? I don't know. How much did you get for him in the end?
We got about 50 million.
Yeah, you've really invested quite well. Smith Rowe obviously coming in. Anderson's coming back on and a permanent, because I know you had him on loan during the COVID season. And Reece Nelson, you've now got 3 ex-Arsenal players behind Raul Jimenez or Rodrigo Muniz. How have you kind of adapted with those incomings and obviously that massive outgoing? Because João Palhinha was always like top for everything defensive minded as a midfielder, wasn't he? Bit of a force really behind Rodri, I'd say.
Yeah, it's such a massive shame that we lost him. But I mean, we knew we were going to lose him, so we've had time to prepare. I mean, he nearly went to Bayern the year before, so we did know that it was inevitable. He is probably, him or Moussa Dembele are the best players I've ever seen play for Fulham in my lifetime. Absolutely fantastic. And it's always, you're not going to be able to replace a player that good. And we brought in Sander Berge, but it's actually been Sasha Lukic who's stepped into that Palhinha role, and he's really taken it by the scruff of the neck, and he's playing fantastically. He's been one of our best players this season. Is he Palhinha level? No, of course not. But it's not such kind of a big absence in our midfield as I thought it would be. As you say, we've done kind of some really savvy business, bringing in Smith Rowe, like you said, bringing in Anderson. So I think overall, I'd say our squad has actually improved from last season, which is good. I think you always want to go into next season with a better squad than you did the season before. But I think, to be honest, the Palhinha size gap it's never going to be fully filled, but we're doing a good job of it.
Yeah, I mean, I completely forgot to actually mention Tosin Adrabaya going to Chelsea, which I'm sure Fulham fans absolutely love because of going to to a rival. Has Joachim Anderson kind of filled that gap as well? Because I thought I was surprised Crystal Palace let him go, to be honest.
I was too. And they made a whole thing about, like he's only doing it for the money. And I guess to a lot of fans, it does seem like a sideways step. But as Fulham fans, it just makes sense because when he was here, he clearly enjoyed being here so much, and he really became like a bit of the furniture around the place, and it's so good getting him back. And I'll be honest, I would snap your hand off for Joachim Anderson for Tosin Adrabaya. I think he is 10 times the player of Tosin. To be honest, Tosin was one of the weaker links in our defence last season. He lost his place a couple times to Issa Diop, whereas the other defenders didn't lose their place all season. So it's one where it's a shame that we didn't get any money for him, and I'd like to have kept Tosin, but I think that we've improved in that position.
Yeah, and then obviously the darling of Ryan Sessegnon coming back to the club has been a nice story, but obviously I don't think he's played yet, has he? I know he's had a lot of injury issues.
No, he's featured in. He started in both of the cup games, and played interestingly. Defensively, not so good. Going forward, good. I mean, when he played for us before, he was a winger, and he kind of got put as a fullback by Mourinho. So us Fulham fans, we want him to kind of be reimagined as that winger, but we'll see.
Yeah, I remember when he broke through in the Championship and he was ridiculous. So hopefully he can get back to that level, but hopefully not this weekend if he does make an appearance. Marco Silva's been at Fulham for quite a while. It's very rare that managers stay. Obviously, there was a bit of talk where he might have gone to Saudi, but thankfully he stuck around for your benefit. Has there been any changes in his style and his system that you've noticed in this early period of season? Because I know with managers, when they stick around for a long time, it's quite easy, I'd have thought, teams to kind of get in a little bit of a rut. But from watching you guys at the weekend, I don't think there really is one. And I kind of just think you're only maybe a couple of players off from really challenging for Europe again. It's like the old days under Roy Hodgson.
Yeah, Marco Silva, he really kind of encapsulates the good feeling around Fulham for the past few years. I think as Fulham fans, we acknowledge that the reason we are where we are is solely down to him. I mean, getting us a top half finish straight after being promoted when everyone predicted us to keep yo-yoing is fantastic. He brings this beautiful attacking possession-based football, which is so refreshing from kind of past managers like Scott Parker and some of the other horror shows we've had. And this season, he's gone into it again, like I said earlier, just playing his style of football. He's saying, no matter who we're playing, no matter who you are, we're going to play the football that we want to play. And it's just so nice to see. I'm really excited for this game on the weekend because I think both teams are going into it thinking we can win this game. And I just think it's going to be such a fast-flowing, exciting game of football.
There's never a lack of goals between Forest and Fulham. So if there's anyone that's of age to bet, I mean, gamble responsibly, but put both teams to score, I would say it's very rare that. I mean, obviously last season you absolutely dumped on us 5-0, but we was in a tragic state of affair. Do you ever fear about Marco Silva leaving the club? Because I always think he's in that category of manager where a bigger team. I'm always quite surprised that no one's ever looked at him and gone, do you know what? I think he's worth a punt, especially when Tottenham got Ange in. I thought Marco Silva might have been a kind of a good fit there as well. Or do you know what I mean? I know he had his time at Everton; it didn't quite go so well. But do you ever fear for him leaving?
Yeah, I was very scared when that whole Saudi thing happened because we just lost Mitrovic a month before, and then it came in and it just looked like we were absolutely capitulating. But he rejected it, and the only place I can really see him going is to a better Premier League club. I think he really enjoys being in the Premier League, and I think he really wants to establish himself as a world-class manager. And I think that the fact he turned down such a massive offer from Saudi shows that he has that desire to actually do well and actually win stuff. You mentioned Spurs. Spurs was the team where I really thought I could see him going to. I can't really see him going to one of the bigger sides. Obviously you've got Man City losing Pep likely next season, but I don't think they're going to be fishing in for Marco Silva. But I think, like I said, I think he wants to stay in the Premier League. So unless a top 6 side or a West Ham come poking, I think we might be all right.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine him going to West Ham. I just don't. I feel like that would be, no disrespect to West Ham, I think that'd be like a sideways step as well. Weirdly enough, I just do. I think they're in that kind of host of teams that are in the same kind of part of the league as well. I've kind of waxed lyrical about Fulham strengths going forward, where that front four are very, very interchanging and flexible. Iwobi terrifies me. I'm so glad he played so badly at the City Ground last season. Mm-hmm. But I do want to ask, what do you think your weaknesses are under Marco Silva? Because you've obviously you've watched him for a long time.
Yeah, this season our weakness has definitely been our midfield. What we've been trying to do is play a pivot of Lukic and Andreas with Smith Rowe as the 10. And the difference from last season is Andreas for the last 2 seasons has been the 10. And now he's playing a bit deeper as the 8. and it's not really been working. A lot of Fulham fans are getting really frustrated with Andreas Pereira. If you look at stats, it says the complete opposite. It says he creates the most big chances in the league, and that's mainly because of how fantastic he is at set pieces. His corners, you won't see an Andreas Pereira corner that isn't right on the money every time. But his general play this season has been quite poor. To be fair to him, as I say, he's not playing in his preferred position. Smith Rowe's taken the 10, he's been dropped to the 8. But lots of Fulham fans are kind of calling for him to be dropped and Sander Berge to come in. But Marco Silva's a massive, massive fan of Andreas Pereira. He's normally the first player on the team sheet. So I can't see him being dropped for the foreseeable future, particularly when we are winning games. I'd be very, very surprised if there's a single change in our lineup ahead of Forest from the Newcastle game. But I'd say that has been our weakness this season thus far.
I've seen a few Fulham fans actually have the same viewpoint on Andreas Pereira, and obviously, like you say, the eye test is better than what it says on paper, which is fair enough. That can be a case for a lot of players, can't it? So that's interesting to know, because I feel like our midfield, although we're out with Sangare and Danilo, I feel like our midfield is pretty strong. Although, I mean, Brighton kind of cut through as like a hot knife through butter, should I say? I'm getting all my words mixed up. Talisman, Joe, would you say Emile Smith-Rowe's kind of really took that, or is it still in firmly Alex Iwobi or Andreas Pereira's hands?
It's an interesting one. I think we're yet to see. I think our goals and our assists and our playmaking is kind of coming from all over this season. Last season we had spells where one player would kind of firmly take it. Obviously, we had that Muniz month where he did everything.
Yeah, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, he's kind of not hit the ground running this season. But at the minute, the man that I'm really enjoying watching is Smith Rowe. He's so good, and you can really see that why he has all of this hype sort of around him, and why Arsenal fans are so upset to lose him, because he is actually that good. The shame with Smith Rowe is he's quite unfit. So he's struggled to play kind of more than 70 minutes per game, but each game he has been playing more and more minutes. He did play quite a fair chunk of the Newcastle game, actually. So hopefully when he gets back to full fitness, he'll be good. I think our main man of this season thus far has probably actually been Adama Traore. He has, for me, been our player of the season so far. Most of our attacks are pushed forward by him. He's just so quick and so strong. It's ridiculous. I think if he had some better end product, because he's got a few assists, I think 2 assists this season already. But his end product, and he's scored. His end product isn't great though. He does waste a lot of chances. He creates a lot of chances, but he can be a little bit greedy at times, and he'll shoot from places where he should be crossing. But he has overall, I'd say, been our driving force in that attack.
Yeah, I mean, two things on what you just said. Like, I think when Smith Rowe got an out signing for Fulham, I thought one great signing for him to get away and actually go and be like a main man at our club, bit similar to like Gibbs White or Hudson-Odoi coming to us in that kind of ilk. But two, I thought he's like Hazard when he went to Real Madrid. He's just been eating loads of food over the summer and just like looked a little bit overweight. But I think he will get back there. Like you say, he's playing more and more minutes, and I thought his goal was really well taken. People might say it's bad goalkeeping by Nick Pope, but I thought it was a good finish in terms of like how quickly he took the ball, how quickly he took that shot. So he caught him out by surprise. So yeah, that's funny. And then with Traore, I remember watching him at Middlesbrough and my mate saying to me like, bloody hell, he's rapid. And I said, yeah, but don't worry, he'll get to the byline and you'll watch. And he just put the ball out straight for a goal kick. And he did that for the rest of the game. And I can imagine him being so frustrating. And then when it actually comes off, you're like, bloody Nora. Like, I seen the assist against Newcastle for Nelson. Not for Nelson, for the Iwobi chance, and Pope made a quite good save actually. So volley, what's your thoughts been on Forest so far, Joe?
Yeah, so I actually live with a Forest fan, so I'm put through kind of all the Forest games, and I've watched all of them, or not the ones that overlap with ours, obviously, but all the ones that I can. And Forest have been impressive this season. They're obviously above us. I hear that every day from my friend that I live with, that you're sitting one place above us. But But as I say, I think it just shows that both teams are really going to go in thinking that they can win this match. I know Forest's key men have kind of been their wingers this season. Obviously, Gibbs White has played well. I know Ola Aina. I was a big fan of Ola Aina when he played for us. And I said to my friend when he signed, I said, seriously, I said, he's one that you got to keep an eye on. Don't let him go under the radar because he's really, really good. And he has been really good this season. And Forest do have threats that can hurt us. I was mostly concerned about Gibbs White going into it, but obviously sore subject, I'm sure, but it won't be available. And Nuno won't be available either, will he?
No. Both manager and, well, he's been captain for when he started, and Yates hasn't started. So yeah, two big people missing really off from our team.
Yeah, so I mean,
big plus for Fulham.
I'd like to say advantage Fulham, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. But yeah, Forest have had a great start to the season. Obviously, that win at Anfield might be your best win this season, probably will be. I mean, you don't really get much better than winning at Anfield. I remember when we did it a few years ago in the lockdown season, so couldn't be there. But I'm sure it would have been. Did you manage to make it to the?
I managed to go. Yeah, it was good.
Oh, it must have been fantastic. Imagine. But yeah, it'll be a tough challenge for sure. I am actually a little bit nervous going into the game, whereas last season, even when you guys battered us that time, I wasn't nervous going into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm equally nervous just because it's Fulham and you usually get the better of us. We kind of not quite a bogey side, but just one of them teams that you're always wary of, that they can go and beat anyone on their day. And with Marco Silva at the helm, anything's pretty much possible. I mean, I know fans might get at me for waxing lyrical about another manager or another team, but I'll say it how I see it, kind of thing. Fulham are a good side, so it's going to take a lot of stopping. Where do you kind of see how you're going to expose us on Saturday?
I think probably we're going to play, as we're away, we're probably going to play a lot on the counter-attack, and our driving force of the counter-attack will be Adama Traore. And it doesn't really matter how fast any team's fullbacks are, because they're not going to be faster than Adama Traore.
Yeah,
and that's where kind of the issue lies for most teams when we're going away from home and playing a bit more counter-attacking football, that when we're going forward, we are going to be looking to get the ball to Adama Traore, who'll drive us up the pitch. And then, like you said earlier, it's just a matter of will he run it off the pitch, or will he manage to pull it back and put a good ball in? But I'd say that is where we will be hurting you. I think that we may just be able to win the midfield battle with Gibbs White now unavailable. I think before, Gibbs White might have overwhelmed, like I said, Andreas in the 8, made it really, really tough for him to kind of have a real impact on the game. But I think, is it going to be Yates that comes in for?
I'd imagine it could literally be a combination of a few. So Jota Silva came on at the weekend, and he can either play on the wing or behind Chris Ward. But I would imagine Yates will come in, and Elliot Anderson might drop into that that number 10 role. If
and he's been all right this season as well, hasn't he?
He's been really good. He's a busy, horrible bloke. He'll just run around kicking folk as well, and he's pretty good on the ball as well. So Nuno and his coaching staff have got a fair few options. For me, I'm more worried about Smith Rowe picking up balls in certain places, and Iwobi obviously drifting off the wing, because I know he likes to do that, and that can cause teams problems as well, which doesn't if we're switched on, then I'm happy, but it's easier said than done. How do you feel the game will play out? Do you think it'll be quite end to end then?
Yeah, I'm hoping it will be end to end. I'm making the trip for it from my university, so nice. It'll be a long old haul. So I'm hoping it will be a good game. We always do seem to have thrillers. Obviously, the main one that sticks in my mind is the 5-0. But I mean, even like the season before that, where we had that 3-2, where we scored 3 goals in 6 minutes.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Games like that, we always seem to have just these battles where both teams really go for it, and that's what I think. I think it'll be a high scoring, end to end, exciting game. Let's hope, or it'll either be that, or one team will batter. I just can't see it being like a boring 0-0 or something like that, or a 1-0. I just think it's gonna have something exciting in it for us.
Cool. I know you said you reckon you'll be unchanged, but for our listeners who might not be asked to kind of look that sort of thing up or whatever, what would your what would you pick for Saturday with a formation as well, Joe?
So we'll be going in with a 4-2-3-1, and it will be Leno in goal, then Robinson, Bassey, Anderson, and Tete has been our kind of defence so far this season. Anderson came in for Diop. Tete's taken his place back from Castagna last season. Then we'll be running Lukic and Andreas. I'm sure we will be in the 6 and the 8, and then Smith Rowe in the 10, Iwobi and Traore as the wingers, and then up front it will be Jimenez, who's kind of taken that spot away from Muniz. But I mean, Jimenez, he's started 2 now, scored in both of them. So he's another player that not normally I'd pick out as a threat, but he's on form. So maybe someone that has to be looked at and has to be worried about for Forest fans. We'll see. Obviously, you guys have Chris Wood as well. I kind of associate Forest fans might think Chris Wood is a lot better than Muniz and Jimenez, but I kind of associate Chris Wood in the same kind of ilk of strikers as on their days they'll pop up with a goal. They'll be there for you. So I think Chris Wood could cause us some problems. I remember he scored that long shot against us last season in the 3-1.
I never thought he had that in his locker, to be honest. I don't know where Bird Leno was going. He was going for a Twix somewhere in the Lower Bridgeford by the looks of it. But yeah, very, very interesting. I think Jimenez is quite a clever striker with his movement, because I know he's not the quickest, and it depends on who he tries to play against, because Milenkovic can be a bit of an aerial beast, and Murillo is pretty quick across the ground. So it might be a difficult day for him. It's obviously like how you can kind of get the ball to him and in what space. So yeah, definitely an interesting battle, Joe. I think it'll be pretty end-to-end. I remember a game back in the Championship, and Roddy Yeager and Ross McCormack were up front for Fulham, and it was a 5-3. So that was ridiculous as well. So if there's anything like close to that, then fans will be getting their money's worth, I'm sure. So what's your score prediction finally before you go?
My score prediction, I'm gonna have to go for our first away win of the season. It'd be disrespectful if I didn't pick us to win, but I'm gonna go for 3-1.
I'd rather you say 3-1 than 3-2, because that was a curse last year. I think we lost 7 times by that scoreline, which is absolutely ridiculous. I'm not going to tell you mine, because I'm going to do that later for our show. So, but sure. I won't be predicting Forest to lose or draw. Put it that way. So, but yeah, it's going to be a good game. I'm hoping. So anyway, we might be one of the first on Match of the Day, maybe in a thriller. Yeah. But no, thank you very much, Joe. If anyone wants to check out any of your content, I know you're on the TikTok, aren't you, and that sort of thing. That's your kind of generation, isn't it, of people. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so on TikTok it's FFC Gunning, mainly Fulham content, but kind of a little bit of everything football related. I'm thinking about doing a little match day sort of vloggy video sort of thing for the Forest games. So I'll have that posted kind of a day later. If anyone's interested in checking it out, seeing if I enjoyed or didn't enjoy my day.
No, well, normally when obviously, I don't know if you've got this thing, because I have, but if like we beat an opposition team, I will try and hunt out an opposition fans like reaction to goals or whatever, and just inject all of their pain into me for the day or whatever. But yeah, no, really appreciate you coming on, mate. Hopefully, I won't wish you any luck, but hopefully you have a good season. Yeah, and yeah, we'll hopefully reconvene later in the year as well.
Yep, thanks for having me.
So, Mason, team for Saturday is going to be an interesting one. Obviously, I think there's going to be a couple of changes in there. I'm going to bring up my team first before I bring up your team and see what you think to mine, because I usually bring up the other person's, but I change it around a little bit. So for the audio listeners, I've gone 4-2-3-1. I've kept the same back five. So Matt Sells in goal, Olarena, Milenkovic, Murillo, Alex Moreno. There, I've brought in Ryan Yates back in for Morgan Gibbs-White's partner, James Ward-Prowse. I've put Jota Silva in replacement of Anthony Elanga, Elliot Anderson in the central attacking midfield role, Callum Hudson-Odoi and Chris Wood. Any thoughts on that, Mason?
You could probably see me grinning away just to the side of your team then. I was literally on the way home from work thinking, have I sent him the right team? Because I was thinking in my head that I would possibly go for this if I didn't go for the one that I sent you. Yeah. I really like it because I was thinking, obviously, I think Jota's Silva's got to come in. But yeah, I really like that. Really like that team. I'd be more than happy with it. I think Anderson, and obviously I know Gibbs White is Gibbs White, but I think Anderson does deserve a bit of a pop in the number 10. To be fair, less defensive duties, and I think we might see a bit more of an attacking version of Elliot Anderson. So yeah, I'd be more than happy with that, mate. Yeah.
The one thing I think Anderson does do that he might do different to Gibbs White is be more central. Gibbs White does like to drift to the left more so than the right or whatever. As I think like a lot of the data nerds will put on like his heat map and where he gets his touches. Although I know for the penalty he was down the right and he left Van Hecker and Estupinian in his dust. Weirdly enough, I never knew he had that bit burst of pace, and he was quick over like a shorter distance, but not over that sort of distance. But yeah, so I think Anderson might occupy those central spaces a lot more and actually get a bit more joy. Maybe I'm not sure if that's just me in hope or what, but I don't know what you think.
No, I do tend to agree, to be fair, because Gibbs White usually likes that left pocket a little bit, doesn't he, where he drifts from all over, a bit like what Grealish did for Villa, really. Yeah, I think we would see the best of Elliot Anderson in a number 10, but he is more than capable on the left or in a number 8. I love him. I think he's slowly growing on me as my favourite Forest player. Like you said earlier, he's just so tenacious off the ball. I'd like to see more on the ball in attacking areas from him. That's the only thing I want. And obviously, like I said, being in the 10 or the attacking midfield role, we'll see that. So yeah, that's 100%. Yeah, I think that's a good team.
Yeah, well, I'm putting your team up. I know you said you wasn't sure, but so you've stuck with the same back five. You partnered James Ward-Prowse in central midfield with Anderson, and you put Jota Silva in the attacking midfield role with Alanga keeping his spot and Hudson-Odoi and Chris Wood. What was your initial thinking for this?
Initial thinking, like I said earlier when we was talking about Fulham, I think Alanga occupies Robinson because Robinson's a huge threat for them. I think I really like him. I can see him getting a big move, to be fair. Don't get me wrong, Robinson dealt with him last year, but Robinson didn't cause us any harm going the other way because Alanga was running next to him. That was my first thought process. And I think Jota Silva is busy and he's energetic and he seems to always be involved in stuff. So I thought the number 10 role would probably suit him quite well. And to be honest, I think he's our most similar player to Gibbs White in a sense that he drifts a little bit, like we just touched on. He drifts a little bit, and he more than deserves a start for me. I think whether it's your team and he comes in on the wing, or it's my team and he's in the attacking midfield role, I think he more than warrants a start. And to be honest, I think with Ward-Prowse and Anderson for 40 minutes, I was going, these two have to be the two now. They have to be because they were both so tenacious. I thought it's been a mixed bag, to be fair, from podcasts that I've listened to or just like TalkSport or whatever. And people have said that Forest lost the midfield battle in the first 40 minutes. To be honest, mate, I thought we won it. I thought Gibbs White, Anderson and Ward-Prowse were doing a very good job. And I think the only reason Ward-Prowse got dragged was because I think it was his runner in Hinshelwood for the goal. And I think Nuno threw his toys out the pram a little bit, and rightly so. But yeah, I think we lost a little bit of momentum on the ball, and I think we lost a little bit of midfield shape off the ball when Ward-Prowse went off. I don't think we can underestimate Ward-Prowse's impact, to be honest. Like, obviously, we've seen it at Anfield firsthand. And for me, it might be an unpopular opinion, but I think we've seen it for the first 40 minutes at the Amex as well. Like, even just little things like when we're conceding corners, him and Milenkovic pushing people, you're there, I'm here, pointing, like geeing people up, clapping, come on, boys. And we've seen that quite a lot from the various camera angles at the Amex. And I was just like, yeah, I've got a lot of time for that signing.
He's got that leadership in him. And captain at Southampton, played 400 games in the Premier League or something daft. Like he's got a lot to offer in that respect. And Milenkovic obviously is now captain at Serbia, I think, as well. And he was captain at Fiorentina, I believe. So, it's a lot of leadership in there. I just thought the way you talked about Jota Silva, I kind of can see why you've put him in the 10 because obviously, like, he does like to drift. He did that on Sunday against Brighton.
Yeah.
it's a headache for Nuno, a good one. I just thought Yates being in there for that stability to then allow Ward-Prowse that bit more time maybe on the ball to kind of protect him, and then maybe just get into Smith Rowe a little bit whenever he can. We saw what Yates did with Alexis McAllister, just winding him up so much, not allowing people like Szoboszlai to kind of dictate what was happening in and around our box either. I just thought both of them together were really, really good. But yeah, you can make a case for anyone. I just think Anthony Elanga's been a little bit off the boil this season, but when he's come on from the bench, he's looked more impactful.
Yeah, 100%. I do agree.
It's funny because you thought the first 40 minutes we were really good, and then obviously I've got a complete different point of view, and I'm going, we're getting overrun, and it's like Danny Welbeck's picking up too many positions up in front of our back four, and I don't like it. And I thought Brighton moved us around really, really well. I thought they were so much better than Liverpool in terms of tempo and movement and getting wingers at least into a crossing position, whereas Liverpool were overhitting passes a lot of the time, and we was kind of just going, well, we'll waste a bit of time from goal kicks and etc. So, I think it's an interesting one. Where do you see, I think on Sunday as well, the lack of introduction of Tyrell Wunya, we discussed this on our last pod. I don't know what you seem to think about that, because he's not come on in the last couple of games now. Why do you think that is?
Well, for me, I think it's pretty clear. I think Nuno's not having him. I don't think Nuno is having him one bit, to be honest. I think for him to make the subs that he's made in the last couple of games, I think it proofs in the pudding. I can't see him playing many minutes between now and January, and if he's still here after January until the end of the season, to be honest. I think Nuno's potentially given up on his body. And I genuinely do. I think being in and around that environment like I used to be, I've seen that happen numerous times. I've seen it happen to myself. Like, managers just tend to just go, I can't trust you. I cannot trust you to put in a shift. Obviously, we know what Taiwo can do, and Taiwo is a different animal when he's 100% fit. And I love Chris Wood. I love what Chris Wood has become. I love his turnaround with the fans. I love everything about Chris Wood. But if Taiwo Wunya is fully fit, Taiwo Wunya starts 10 out of 10 games. But he just doesn't seem to be. Like, I think it was one of you guys on a previous episode. You said he looks like he's running with someone on his back, and then someone said it looks like he's running with two men on his back, because he just does. He just looks way off it, and it's a sad sign to see. It's sad to see, because like I said earlier, if Taiwo is fit, he's the main man for me. But I just don't think Nuno trusts him enough to play him in games, especially this early on in the season. We might see him if we're safe, or if we've got a home game where Wood's played on the Sunday and we've got a game on the Wednesday or something along them lines, and Taiwo needs to start and play 60. We might see him, but by the looks of things, when we're needing to make changes, he's not a man who he's looking at. I genuinely think he would bring on Jota or Sosa to play up front, even if they were on their own, instead of Taiwo at the minute.
It's a bit of a worry then, because if we're just relying on Chris Wood for the season, then that's a bit scary, especially because obviously we didn't bring in someone in the summer to be that rotational player, which I've still actually agreed on what the club did there, where they didn't just go and buy anyone or overspend. They stuck to their values of what they thought a player valuation is, and obviously it's been now reported that Santiago Jimenez is injured, and I just thought it was a bit strange to see Forest fans like gloating, almost saying like that's what you get for rejected. I'm like, it's a big decision in the end, like for someone to come and move to another country and come and test it. Maybe just didn't think he was ready to come and test himself in this league. Maybe just didn't fancy it at Forest. That's fine. Do you know what I mean? Like, just move on, kind of thing. With Chris Wood, I think he has. I think you're right. He's turned it around completely. And I mean, a lad who I know called John, he pointed out weirdly though, like in I think all the games Wood scored, I think he's only scored in 4 games we've won, which is like Fulham, Burnley. I think it was another one was Newcastle and another, and I can't remember which one. But yeah, that's a strange record to have where he's scored and we've not won many games because he scored 3 goals this season. We've drawn all 3 games in our red strip.
What an unusual start that is.
I know, because he scored a lot of goals. Scored a lot of goals for us. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. How do you see the game going against Fulham?
To be honest, like I said earlier, you don't know what Fulham you're going to get. If we get a Fulham who is a bit lackluster, similar to last year, I think it's only going one way. And that sounds ridiculous to say that because I've never said that about any of our games. But I just think we're a bit of a different animal now. Not saying we'll walk all over them because I don't think we will for 1 minute. But I'm pretty confident in the fact that if we're playing like how we know we can and how we've started the season, then we can come away with 3 points. I think that's. Yeah. I think that, don't get me wrong, they'll cause us problems. They've got Pereira, Smith Rowe, like you said. Adama started really well. Jimenez scored at the weekend, didn't he? So they've got players who can hurt us, but yeah, especially with how we've defended, even how we bounced back on Saturday. Because I think if that's the season before last, before last season, sorry, we crumble and we lose 3-4-1 there against Brighton.
Yeah,
and there was still a little part of me that was thinking that's going to happen. But once we'd rode the wave and Sells made that Welbeck save, I thought, oh, this has got like we're in this. We're still there. So yeah, I think, like I said, we're a different animal, and I can only really see if we perform well, then yeah, I think we could come away with 3 points. And I do think we need that at home because I don't want this at home thing to drag on any longer. Yeah, I seen Carragher say on his thing that he does with post goals, talking to that Forest fan, and Carragher said something about, oh, you're struggling at home, and I was thinking, we've only played 2 games at home. It's not struggle, is it? Yeah. It's not necessarily a struggle. I don't want that to drag on, so I'd love us to get a win, and just get that off our backs.
Yeah, I mean, the stats say we've not won at home since April. I mean, obviously you've had the whole summer between now and April. So it makes it sound much worse than it actually is. I think the first 2 home games have been unlucky. Like the 2 goals we've conceded, there was more than ample opportunity to add a second and kind of kill a game off, and we've just not quite done that yet. But I think, I mean, this is probably going to sound cliche and a bit obvious, but I think we need to start hard and fast against Fulham. I think they're a team that if you can kind of get on top of straight away and maybe get an early goal, maybe get 2 early goals like we did last season, the kind of heads go down, because against Newcastle, they're letting a goal that got disallowed from Joe Linton, and then suddenly they got the tails up because they start getting in the game, and then they scored, and then they got on top of Newcastle. And even after they conceded a really quick goal second half, they were still pretty much the better side in that game, I would argue. So I think like every challenge and every second ball, we've just got to go out and win and kind of get on top of them. And I think if we can stop any momentum that they build by being disruptive and being aggressive, then I think we can definitely get a win. But just before I get your score prediction? So Lee and Christian have predicted as 2-1 to win. Reese has predicted a thriller 3-2. I think we'll win 3-1, which is the same scoreline as last season. What do you think?
I'm gonna agree with Lee and Christian. I've had in my head 2-1 the full week. Yeah, so I'm gonna stick with 2-1.
2-1. Who's scoring?
Wood and Jota. I think
Wood and Jota. I mean, if Jota scores, I feel like he's already building cult status, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a very loved Portuguese, isn't he? He's very loved.
I just think it was just because of his like enthusiasm, really, and his aggression. Like he just does not give 2 toots about anyone, and I like that.
And that's the thing I think we like. Like we've got players who want to play in the Premier League. Like you haven't got your Origis who's coming for a last payday or thinking about MLS in the future or Dubai or wherever he's going to go and play. We've got players who want to prove themselves in the league. Like even Sosa, the way he was fuming when he made that bad pass at the end, even though he was probably off, the way he celebrated his goal, Jota, he's maniac when he was going crazy at one of their defenders for pulling him down. Like, yeah, I've got a lot of time for it. So hopefully we can carry on like that.
Definitely. Well, if you've enjoyed the pod, drop us a like, subscribe. It's for free. We'll see you in the review on Sunday, hopefully with 3 points and 12 points for the season to start us off. I mean, and an unbeaten run still going. So We'll see you then, and take care. Come on, you Reds.